telling you what they've heard. They're able to prove that she can't talk to us. We brought up the leak in court January 13th. Gray accused that office of leaking the information. And ever since then, we've been able to prove that we knew about the sheaf and the DNA CODIS hit.
Did you guys catch that? Good evening, Sunday night. Let's do this. Check this out. Listen.
She's bound by the rules of that court. So if they defend it, and I don't think they want that attention. And that's probably why most of them have already retired. So, I don't think we're going to get any help. We don't have a victim's advocate. She's bound by the rules of that court. So if the judge tells her to shut her mouth and don't talk about it, there's an open investigation of the leak, and she's a part of that team. She can't talk to us. We brought up the leak in court January 13th. Gray accused that office.
There you go. Let's talk about it here. I think everybody missed this big boom. Happy Sunday. So let's talk about it. Do you guys remember that back in the day? It was Steve back in 2023. That's what the big blow up was. He's saying, Shannon Gray, remember we accused Bill Thompson of being the leak back then. They've been the ones.
Of leaking the information. And ever since then, we've been able to prove that we knew about the sheaf and the DNA, CODIS hit, all that stuff before.
CODIS hit? What CODIS hit was there? There has not been a CODIS hit, though. Was there a CODIS hit? Why isn't anybody talking about this? I love a good Sunday night. We're here for a long haul tonight, guys. We're here.
And you think if there's an investigation, why hasn't anyone ever called us and asked us where we heard it?
Exactly. I've been saying that forever. That's why I was always saying, Steve, oh God, no, please don't say that. They're going to come talk to you. You know? But he's basically saying, why isn't anybody coming and asking us, if there truly is an investigation, hello, we would know. Why hasn't anybody asked us where we got any of our information from? This is comical.
So there is no investigation going on. They're lying to Hitler if they're telling him there's an investigation. There's no investigation going on because the first person who told you that there was leaks and proved to you by telling you what they've heard, that eventually becomes part of your case. The sheep, we knew about the sheep before it was. We knew about the white car before they released it. They never came and asked us who told us that information. They didn't even try. So,
who was it?
Oh, I would never. I'm not going to give that information out. I really respect the people that actually reached out and tried to help us. They're awesome mothers and fathers, and they cared about their community, and they wanted to make sure that this was done the right way. And we did know some stuff, but I respect all those people, and I would never give out their information. They're all safe.
Understanding.
They're all safe. So I was like, oh my God, does that mean if then they do come to him, that he's going to be like, sorry, I'm not giving it up. So what is going on? What is going on? What is up? What is up? I've spent the weekend literally what the hell were the Delphi defense team doing for two years?
It makes perfect sense. You got a loyalty to those. Thinking along the way there would be because of the gag order or any other reasons. Is there information now that I haven't known and the rest of us haven't known up until today?
Most of the information we found out were just people calling up. I've had other officers call us up and just say, I don't know what just happened in the court today, but I don't support it. People so angry at what was happening in that courtroom that they would literally pick up their phone and call us and say, this is what's on Bryan's phone. This is what he was searching.
You guys, welcome to the transparency. This is wild, right? This is wild. Basically saying, I have no idea what's going on in court. Here it is, blah, blah. Okay. How come nobody where's mainstream media questioning the Gary Jenkins? Why isn't anybody, questioning that? Where's Gary Jenkins here? Gare Bear, where are you? Gary Jenkins. Chapter 19, I told you guys the next time I talk to you guys, it'll be, hey, we're going to get into MO. Okay. And so back, chapter 19, those of you guys that have the book, what page am I on over here? Okay. Chapter 19. Perfect. Chapter 19. Okay, is Annie Potts in here? Annie Potts went to Pennsylvania. Give it up for her. But chapter 19, ready? His MO, Bryan Kohberger's MO, was in 2013. He would hang out with two guys, and they'd be in the dense woods. And the kids can play paintball all day. They can hunt critters, and they can lose one another for hours on end. Two of the boys don't notice exactly where the third boy, a tall kid with bulging eyes, positions himself. They don't see if he's close to the house or even inside it. And this would be the house of none other than Bayless is the last name, Mark. And Mark has a kid. He's also got a girlfriend. And back in 2009 or 2013, Mark, stuff would go missing from his house. And he would he'd be like, what the fuck? Where's all my shit going? Repeatedly. Somebody was stealing his knives, his coins, his prescription pills, his girlfriend's jewelry. And I'm like, he's a special forces veteran. All right. He keeps calling the cops. And this is in Pennsylvania. But they are worse than useless. They show up, file a report, do nothing. So Bayless stays frustrated. Could the thief be one of the veterans he houses nearby as part of the charity he founded? That's a bad feeling. He doesn't put it together until years later that the thief must have been one of his son's friends. And he'd put it together years later when Bryan Kohberger was arrested. I'm like, coins? This man's coin collection was worth $25,000. He had a coin collection that was $25,000. He doesn't see it in the moment, but he's sure later how it happened. The first time he believes the tall, pale kid who weirded him out and waited for the others to run off into the trees, then forced the lock and entered the garage where Mark kept his collection of army knives, and he took one. And then on the next visit, Mark thinks he took another one. One by one, they just vanished, these knives. Next, it was Bayless's coin collection worth $25,000. Bayless talks to his son Jack and his nephew Brandon about what the heck's going on here. He says he's going to catch the thief if they try it again, and I'm going to shoot them. Jack tells the third kid, who his name is Bryan, that his dad is pissed. Bryan tells Jack, he reveres his father. That's what he says, or at least that's what he puts in a text. But what he does, or what Mark thinks he does, smacks of something different than straight up hero worship. What? Someone starts to stalk Mark. The stalker hides in those trees, camouflaged, munching on Reese's peanut butter cups. I'm like, what am I reading? This is like dropping the wrappers on the ground, waiting for Mark to leave on one of his orange motorcycles or his pickup truck. The stalker forces the door open with a knife and heads for the bathroom where Bayless keeps old prescription drugs. And the thief can guess where he'd keep jewelry: in the bedroom. One time, the thief is up in the bedroom and hears wheels in the driveway. Bayless is back. Later, much later, Bayless puts the scene together in his head. He comes to believe that Bryan, knowing he has the element of surprise on his side, hides, waits for the veteran to walk toward the back of the house, then sprints out the front door into the woods he knows will protect him. Through the trees and onto the road, safe for now. That's chapter 19. So Bryan's MO is that he breaks into people's houses and steals shit, according to this book. And I'm like, okay, well, how does somebody escalate to breaking in and stealing coins and knives and jewelry for his in 2013 drug addiction when he was like 18 or 17 years old? So then somebody stabbing and killing four people. Chapter 20. This is all about Bryan in this book. This part that I'm talking about. I'm like, wow. What would Bryan do with a coin collection? You have to sell it if you want money for it. So where, like, did this Mark guy go and check like the pawn places? I mean, you just roll up on the block to your drug dealer and you say, hey, I got these coins. What do you got? What do you got? What can I get for these coins? I mean, I don't know. So we had that hearing before this whole ordeal happened. In the Pennsylvania hearing, Jess Harris said that Bryan never threw a punch. Okay. At his gym. Well, this book, chapter 20, Jesse Harris, he's in this book. The former pro boxer opened his gym here for precisely this reason. It's to help the fat kids, I guess, the troubled fat kids. You know what I mean? So, I guess. Jesse set up the gym to offer local people who've given up, teens mostly, hope. Right. So, today the lumbering kid who barely makes eye contact lets his dad do the talking. The man introduces himself as Michael Kohberger and says with forced brightness that this is my son, Bryan. He says Bryan wants to lose weight. He's changing his habits, his life. This was in 2012. This would be a whole year before he starts stealing in 2013 coins, jewelry. Okay. He's going to start a vegan diet, but he needs to build muscle, speed up his metabolism. The father's clearly a nice guy, Jesse notes, but a talker. Hardly pausing to breathe. Now, what I have problem with is what Jesse said to the courts, and then what actually is said in this book is opposite. Do you guys know that? So Jesse says that Jesse shows Bryan the gloves, and they do basic pad work. Jesse stands on one side of a face-size ring hanging from the ceiling, and Bryan stands on the other, pow, pow, left, right. Though his eyes, bulging eyes, can't seem to stop moving, the kid looks focused. His considerable body weight goes into the punch. Jab, jab, 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3. So what is it? Is James Patterson lying? Did Jesse lie to James Patterson? Or did Jesse Harris lie to the courts a week before the plea deal? Or whatever it ended up being. Because in Pennsylvania, it was said that he never threw one punch in his gym. We understand that. Right, Miss Potts? There she is, the goat. Miss Potts, can you believe this? Chapter 20, when I was reading this, I'm like, wait a second. I could have sworn this kid just talked a week before the plea. And what do you think? Jesse can tell that the kid likes the rhythm of punching. They all do. Jesse thinks that's why boxing is better than therapy. The kid is surprising. He's back the next day. Jesse shows him the power pad. The kid stands on it, pulls the bands up to his side. If he keeps at it, Jesse tells him he'll be able to pull the bands over his head. Woo! And the kid comes back. Again and again. Every day, the dad drops him off, coming in to chat with Jesse if the coach has the time. He mentions that Bryan's had trouble in school. He's been bullied. Doesn't like their new house. His friend Jeremy was a bad influence, and they've had to separate them. Jesse notices that as the days pass, that Bryan is getting leaner and more focused. He spends 2 to 3 hours a night, a day, whatever, at a time in the gym. It's almost as if he's going. It's almost as if he's got nothing else to do, Jesse thinks, but he probably doesn't. The kid's no bother, though, so not to Jesse or anyone else. He keeps to himself, works out, then he just leaves. The regulars start acknowledging him. Hey, Bryan, he's one of them for now. And I'm just like, wow. I was like, so either this book is lying, so James Patterson is lying about what Jesse told him in his interview, or Jesse lied to James Patterson and then tells the courts the truth. But I was just like, whoa. Whoa. But in the courtroom in Pennsylvania, he said that he never thrown a punch. His exact words, Bryan was never there to box and never threw a punch. That's what his exact words were in the courtroom. I think we just called Jesse right now. What do you think? In 2013, so that was in 2012, going back to 2013, Bryan hits up his friend Cassie. He graduated high school early in March and wants to go to college, maybe East. So Bryan's like, I'm going to go study criminal justice. Tonight he's texting, Casey, because he needs a favor. He tells her his car broke down and he has to get to his cousin's house near this Luna Rossa area, a restaurant that's about 20-minute drive up Route 209. Casey says that she's happy to help Bryan. She feels sorry for him that he's stuck all the way up in Indian Mountain Lake in that weird gated community. So she gets into her car and drives the 3 miles up to the mountain to meet Bryan, who's waiting for her outside the security gate. She drives him. He pops in and out of the restaurant, then asks if she can swing by CVS quickly because he needs to buy needles for his aunt, who is diabetic. Casey thinks that's a bit weird, shady actually, but it's hard to argue with such an apparent compassionate. He's being compassionate. She's like, I think this is weird as fuck, but okay. So she gives him the benefit of the doubt. They go to CVS to get needles. When he's inside CVS, she thinks fondly of the times they've had, joshing together. What? But anyways, this broad Casey runs into their friend Brandon, and Brandon tells her it's common knowledge that Bryan gets heroin at that restaurant. It's common knowledge. That's why he needed you to give him a ride there and back, and why he stopped to get needles at CVS. This is what this kid Brandon says. Now, who do we believe that the Brandon kid is? Well, I think it's that Brandon that also spoke at the hearing, the Pennsylvania hearing. Andriola. And it says it's him right here. One of Tom's friends, Brandon Andriola. So he was one of the dudes that also spoke in Pennsylvania because he was under a subpoena. And it was actually, remember, this is the defense. The defense is bringing him in. And he's like, dude, I've given the cops everything. I think he rolls up there with his baby mama and the baby and stuff. Anyways, he's going to be, So I started thinking about it, and I'm like, damn. Is Bryan trying to get, like, what Ann Taylor wanting to, call these people? Is all of this shit bullshit? But anyways, Casey, the girl, she feels sick to her stomach. How damn dare him use me to go get your drugs, motherfucker. How damn dare you bring heroin in my motherfucking car, bitch. Okay? And see, Casey, you could have just played dumb, girl. You didn't know any of this stuff. And here, this is what Bryan told me. Like, I was going to help him with his aunt. Anyways, she feels sick about it, and she realizes that most likely she was carrying heroin in her car. Had she been pulled over, she could have been arrested. That's really jumping the gun. No, actually, he would have been arrested. It's on him. I mean, where did he put you would know if he had heroin in the car and that he was just laying it out in your, glove compartment. Anyway, so on May 21st, she sends Bryan a Facebook message at 7:49 p.m., a rare instance in which she is driving the exchange, not him. I would like to hand you a big congratulations for lying to me about driving you around. I should have added up beforehand, but thought I was doing something nice for someone, so thank you. If you would have gotten caught, I would have gotten in trouble just for driving you around, not even knowing why. Needles for your aunt. Wow. Real great story. Bye. So she pulls up a text message that she has in Facebook Messenger. Oh, yeah, here, look at on May 21st of 2013. Dude, you know how far back? I mean, I guess you could just maybe look at how do you have that? Especially if Bryan, especially if his socials were deleted. I wonder what that would look like, because I think it looks like I've seen that before, and it would say user unavailable or something at top. A full day later at 8:33 p.m., Bryan responds, I'm in rehab. I know that, Casey writes back. She receives no reply. I'm in rehab. But as the weeks turn into months, she forgives Bryan. How could she not? He's back from rehab, and he's so lonely. What the fuck? People, I just had to forgive him because he's lonely. Weird. He texts her repeatedly to ask her if her parents will let them hang out. Dude, Who is texting like this when people are 17, 18 years old? Will your parents let us hang out? What? What? Was that like really a thing? I don't know. Maybe I just didn't hang out with dipshits. My mom was never like, you can't hang out with that person. You cannot hang out with them. But probably parents were like, you are not hanging out with that Atlanta girl. She's wild. She's going to get your ass in trouble. Only one time that happened. And it was because... and it was right when Instant Messenger, that stupid AOL shit came out. And I pretended like I was someone's parent when a message popped up on the computer. You know, the computers were just becoming a thing. I pretended to be my mom's friend, and I was like, oh, me and Jay are going through a tough time. I think we're going to get divorced. This broad was like crying, and I was like, oh my God. Like, I just kept on going with it, and then I got caught. They're like, Lana, what are you doing? I'm like, I was joking. I didn't realize this bitch would go so serious and like tell me to get in therapy and shit like that, or do fucking couples counseling and offer me all these names. And I'm over here like, oh, great. Here we go. Anyways, Bryan, you fucking piece of shit. How damn dare you? You went from heroin, stealing, lying to your friends, to killing people. I did the prank though with my friend. Like, she was like right there with me. And so I was like, anyways. In early 2014, Bryan tells her to be proud that she's making something of her life. I'm not, ha ha, he writes. This is the weirdest shit. On March 27, 2014, nearly a year after the car ride to that restaurant, he sends a text. You know I love you guys. Always will, even if we stop talking one day. What? That's so weird. What is Bryan talking about? What does it mean? Bitch, what? If you wanted to know, then you should have wrote him back. What do you mean? All right, so in this book, somebody has to be this source for James Patterson in 2014. And Michael Kohberger does not want to make the call he's about to, but he has no choice. His own son is a threat to the family. Michael Kohberger, did you talk to James Patterson? None of it has worked. Not the boxing, not the diet, not the trips to the gun range. What? Or the move away from Jeremy Saba. Move away from somebody. Bryan's childhood friend who has gotten into heroin. Stop blaming people for people doing drugs. Dude, you're your own person. Not even a stint in rehab. Bryan can't stop using. Which means he can't stop stealing. Ding, ding, ding. Exactly. So let's talk about that night now. Let's talk about November 13th. If Bryan's MO, and your MO is whatever like your vices, like what has he always been doing his whole life? Going into places, burglarizing, stealing stuff so that he could sell it so that he can get drugs, right? That's his thing. According to not only just this book, but like the rumor mill, right? Okay, so when did it stop being his thing? So when did it stop being that I'm stealing from people to be able to fund my heroin addiction? How come this book doesn't tell us when that would have stopped? So Bryan can't stop using, which means he can't stop stealing. Now he's taken Melissa's cell phone and sold it at a mall kiosk for $200, half what it's worth. So I believe that Michael Kohberger or his wife, so Bryan's parents, one of those two had to have talked to somebody, because I don't believe for a second that they are the source for this. Okay. And I do not believe that the sister is either. But so he stole Melissa's cell phone, and at a mall kiosk for $200, he sold it. Well, where are those $25,000 coins? Like a mall, like where do you think Bryan would have sold $25,000? If he's not a dummy, he would know that those were expensive, and that you're not just giving $25,000 worth of coins to some middleman for, what, 80, $100 of fucking heroin. I'd be like, I want $25,000 worth of heroin right now. 308 interviews, 320 interviews, something like that. Anyways, so he calls the police, and actions have consequences. So he closes his eyes briefly, then dials 911. The police arrive, and Bryan has read his rights, and they cuff him. The kid is civil. Barry looks at his dad. He knows who called the cops and why. There's a time to be calm, to talk to the police politely. Bryan knows that because he's only 16. So he's 16 at the time. He'll go again to rehab. Outwardly, he'll be the good, polite son everyone wants, but inside, alone in the basement, Bryan lets his true feelings out. All right. Next up is in 2016, Bryan sits in the basement. He's out of drugs. He's out of drugs, of cash, of friends. Wow. Now his mom is on him to go to Bible study with her. What the fuck? You gonna find Jesus today, son. I don't think that'd be anything new. Nobody just turns to their, 18-year-old son and says, as a parent, and says, let's go to Bible study if we haven't been doing that all along. That'd be weird. I mean, what? She thinks that will fix him. He's gone a couple of times. A text beeps on his phone. Bryan reads it. Maybe there's something to the Bible stuff after all. This is divine timing. What? Jeremy. Oh my God. Jeremy was arrested for DUI and possession of drugs. He's in jail. What the fuck? One man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. Again, we're going to get into this MO. Bryan calls a familiar person, Connie. Connie's who's Jeremy's mom. And he says to the woman who picks up, she trusts him wrongly. Bryan says, and thanks him for what she assumes is a call of condolence and support. Jeremy's mom tells him that Jeremy and Jeremy's dad, we're going to all go visit tomorrow at jail by the courthouse, as Bryan hopes and trusting women share the time of the plan. So Bryan would come and visit Jeremy after. Bryan says, yep, I'll meet you there, whatever. But as he ends the call, he might have been forming his real plan. Connie later says that their absence from their home gave him the perfect window to get what he needed. He used to live next door, so he knew the house, knew where Connie kept her jewelry, and where she left her iPad. Things he could sell to get his next fix. And he knew exactly how to break in through the garage. Well, if he knew all of that, why the hell wouldn't you change all of that? I mean, wow. The next day, or I'm sorry, the next day he executes the plan perfectly. As Connie and her husband leave the courthouse, Connie wonders, wait, where's Bryan? Why hasn't he shown up? He sounded so concerned. Something Jeremy once said nags at her. Bryan is manipulative as fuck, Mom. When the Sabas pull up into their house in the driveway, she sees at once why Bryan didn't come. Someone has been in their home. The door from the garage has been forced open. Her iPad is gone. She doesn't need to wonder who did it. She knows. But will she call the police? Her fingers hover over the phone. She thinks about Bryan's mom, Marianne, a teacher who, like Connie, works in the local school district. Marianne has in the past occasionally and uncharacteristically shared some of Bryan's struggles with her. And then what do, Connie? You go and talk to James Patterson. Connie was like, there was his Asperger's syndrome diagnosis and then later the drugs. She puts the phone away without calling anyone. Well, now that's just not smart, is it, Connie? Why didn't you call his mom? If anything, if you don't want to call the cops on him, you're not going to call his mom and say, hey, I don't want to really be accusatory of Bryan. I just kind of want to let you know how this all went down. He called me, said this stuff, blah, blah. Where was Bryan yesterday from this time to this time? You know, anyways, this is how it all went down. I'm not going to call the police. I'm coming mother to mother. Our boys need help. The fuck? She puts the phone away without calling anyone. She doesn't know any of the specifics, but the Kohberger family is in enough pain right now without Connie adding to their problems, she thinks. What are they in pain about? Like, I don't know. I don't get it. Says the kid in jail, Bryan is manipulative. So I'm reading this book, you guys, and I'm like, yeah, the MO is he has a drug problem. Anybody that has addiction and has a drug problem, how do you facilitate that? Well, either you have a sweet ass job, right? And that pays for your drugs, or you don't have a sweet ass job, right? And you do other things to get the money or get the goods to then convert them into drugs, right? So this is a far stretch for me to say that somebody would be breaking in to people's homes, timing it up when they're not there or when they think that they're sleeping to go in and get stuff to then steal it and then leave. And then I'm going to go score my drugs. Thinking about November 13th for me. Because then how could it be that your intent was to go in there to kill people versus was the intent to go in there to, I just heard it through the grapevine that this is all this area, this is where people come to get their drugs or come to get, whatever. I don't know how it escalates. That's why I think they looked so hard to figure out if he would have killed before, Now this is what's freaky. This chapter 24 freaked me out, you guys. This is what freaked me out. This is 2018. So it'd be like 4 years before the murders. Time flies. She hasn't seen him in months. Talking about Bryan. Talking about Connie. This is how this chapter starts. She hasn't seen him in months. Then she turns and suddenly there he is. In her kitchen. Standing there. Unannounced. Startling her. Jeremy's mom, Connie, isn't even sure which door he came through. He is just there. Tall. Well over 6 feet. Towering over her. Eyes bulging out. And he's thin. She notices. Really, really thin. Bryan, she says, what are you doing here? Bryan, what are you doing here? Even as she's asking the question, she knows the answer because she knows what they teach in rehab. He's come to atone, to make amends. He comes to say he's sorry for stealing from her. I knew it was you, Connie tells him. There's much more Bryan could say. That he's started working toward a psychology degree at Northampton Community College, that he's lonely, he misses Jeremy, but he doesn't say any of that. He doesn't get the chance. After he's done apologizing, Connie thanks him. And then, with as much kindness as she can muster, Connie says, Bryan, you're to leave and never come back to this house. Dude, can you imagine being in your kitchen, like, I don't know, making dinner, and you go to turn around and poof, like, someone's just, like, right there? Like, how the fuck did you get in here? What the fuck are you doing here? Oh my God, Bryan. How'd you get in here? Wouldn't you be asking those questions? Like, where'd you come from? Like, people just think that that's normal? That's not normal. Wouldn't you have a ton of questions to ask Connie? Like how did he drive there, Connie? I have a ton of questions about that. He just shows up. Same year, 2018, Bryan's new classmates at the Sales University call him the Ghost. There's something spooky about him. So every day he enters class in the same uniform. A wrinkled, black, long-sleeved, button-down, and a tan leather jacket. You guys, I just died. I'm like, a tan leather jacket, a tan leather sheath. I'm like, oh my God, I thought it was a black jacket. Now it's a tan leather jacket. Leather sheath, tan leather sheath, tan leather jackets. He's always carrying his silver laptop and a Starbucks coffee cup. Is he? He's a coffee guy? After class, poof, Bryan's back in his car and gone in a cloud of dust. Starting the 45-minute drive along Route 78 and 33. Okay, wait, what? You guys, who sticks around? If you're a commuter in college, like, sticks around, dude. Okay, I took my classes, and I leave. I don't live on campus. What do you want me to sit here and do? So after class, poof, Bryan's gone, man. I would just think that, yeah. He's back to, his nighttime security guard job and any other job he can get. What? This is where you saw in that video, the Amazon, that Josh dude. He was like, oh my God, I know that guy. I went to school with him at sales. Wow. So a lab partner, they were lab partners. He likes how organized Bryan is, and they're in biology. And Josh notices that Bryan becomes less aloof and more animated in psychology, sleuthing, which, how can you remember that? That's 4 years ago. You know what I mean? Yeah. I couldn't tell you anything about any of my partners in any of my college classes. Like, I don't even know if we've ever had a group project. Did we? I think the closest thing to any group project I had was a communications class. I hated group projects. Like, what the fuck? What are we doing this for? Yeah, no, I'm good. Good on the group projects. But Dr. Catherine Ramsland enters the book. There's a crime scene house there. The students pretend they're detectives called to the crime scene. Blah, blah, fucking blah. Same fucking bullshit. Okay, great. Next one is 2018 again. Oh, here it is. They talk about Elliot Rogers in this because she's explaining all the serial killers. 2019. For James Patterson to find this person, which would be this guy that owns the bar in Lehigh Valley. It's called the Seven Sirens Brewing Company, okay? So typically after a few drinks, Bryan pushes his way into unwanted conversations with both female bartenders and female patrons. He even asks for their addresses. What? Hey, can I get your address? You guys, what the fuck? Hey, can I get your address? Excuse me? You mean my phone number? Are you drunk? Hey, can I get your address? Come on, man. Women have started complaining to the brewery's owner, Jordan, about the creepy guy with the bulging eyes. So he put the kid on his watch list. Yeah. He says, I need you to leave women alone. There have been some complaints. Bryan gives one heck of a performance, almost Broadway level. Jesus, really? I don't know what you're talking about. That's Broadway level. All he said was, I don't know what you're talking about, Bryan says. You have me totally confused. That's Broadway level. Wow. That was in quotes. Bryan takes another sip of his beer. So Bryan's a beer drinker. And another. It's like they are playing a game of chicken. The fuck? Bryan finishes his beer casually. Jordan doesn't know if his words have any impact, but as the days tick by, he registers something that makes him happy. The kid doesn't come back. I'm like, well, okay. Now, this is where I call bullshit, and we're going to talk about it right here. Bryan is immersed in studying for, this is chapter 28, in 2021. Bryan is immersed in studying for his master's degree. Even though he's been stuck at home, working remotely, thanks to COVID, he's doing so well that one of his professors, Michelle, wants to recommend him for a PhD in criminal justice at Washington State University. So I'm guessing that let's just go ahead and say like Bryan gets clean at some point. They don't really talk about when he would have gotten clean and when he would have just stopped being, I don't know, weird. But 2015, 16, 17, 18, 2019, he's at some bar. Then 2021, here's this incident, which is, oh, hey, I want to recommend you for a PhD program in criminal justice at Washington State University, which is across the country. Bryan has never left his house ever in PA. She's only ever recommended one other person. Bryan is feeling elated. But soon after March 16th, his phone pings with the news that Jeremy is dead. Connie's son. The facts are tragically familiar. Jeremy was found upstairs in his bedroom. A lethal dose of fentanyl killed him. Extraordinary what a small pill can do. Pill? He took a pill for him? Earlier, he had been tinkering with a car in the driveway, then drove off in it to go get some oil, he had told his mother. Hey, I'm going to go get some oil. Minutes later, he was home and then dead. The local police took his phone and computer, but they never found the dealer. Bryan is away when Jeremy dies. Is away where in 2021? Where was he away at, you guys? Bryan in 2021, like away where? He's in Pennsylvania. March 16th, 2021. His phone pings with the news that Jeremy is dead. Curious how he got that. Like, what do you mean by pinging? The local police took his phone and computer, but never found the dealer. Why did they take his phone and computer? I think his parents should ask for that back. It says Bryan is away when Jeremy dies. His parents had wanted to keep the news from him until he returned because they knew how hard it would hit. All that's left for Bryan are memories. Memories of Jeremy as a high school kid. Jeremy driving his Mazda. Jeremy playing video games. Jeremy working out. What? It's really weird. No memories like together. Wait, you guys, I'm so confused. Where was Bryan on March 16th, 2021 that he was gone? Yeah, I know they do that, but I'm saying that they didn't find the dealer. Interesting, huh? Sorry, I would think it'd be pretty easy to find the dealer. He was away at school, allegedly. Talk about away at school. He commuted to DeSales. Guys, away at school, 2021, March. Is this book trying to suggest that Bryan was in Washington in March of 2021? Interviewing with Washington State Police, Gary Jenkins, which it didn't happen that way. They did it via Zoom. But is this book trying to suggest that? Rehab in Montana. To rehab in Montana, Atlanta. Come on. Think about that, guys. Come on. Doesn't make any. This book doesn't. It's contradicting itself. If in 2021, it says, but soon after March 16th, his phone pings with the news that Jeremy is dead. So Jeremy died on March 16th. People tried to keep the news from him, and sometime after March 16th, his phone notified him. And you don't think he was like, "Mom, Dad, what the fuck?" The last time Bryan's parents saw Jeremy, he had been doing well, apparently. Who is that source? Mr. and Mrs. Kohberger had run into Jeremy and his parents, there you go, at the Texas Roadhouse, a steakhouse in Strasburg, whatever the fuck the area is. So Bryan wasn't with them. It was a good meeting. It was so random. Bryan's dad told Jeremy he was proud of him for getting clean. Now Bryan pounds the table with his fists. What? He doesn't phone Jeremy's parents. He won't even attend the memorial service for Jeremy or contribute to the memorial page online. What? How could he? If he didn't know he died. He knows that the tipping point for Elliot Rodger was the loss of his best friend, James Ellis. Oh, God. He hadn't been talking to this Jeremy kid forever. What the fuck is going on here? And this is me. This is my comment on this chapter. Wow. If only he were still my friend, Rodger had written of James. Bryan gets it. If only Jeremy were still alive. I'm like, Jesus. So they think that Bryan started, I'm going to kill because Jeremy, who I haven't talked to in years. Wow. Okay, April of 2022. Chief Gary Jenkins, head of the Pullman Police Department, looks at a list of questions and then up at the intern candidates he zoomed with. The name of the guy staring back at him on the screen is Bryan Kohberger. Jenkins has no idea where he's from or where he's situated for their online meeting. What? You Where's my stuff? Son of a bitch. Here we go. This 50 pages, you guys. It's actually 51 pages. It's the Pullman request from the break-in of 2021. And it has the emails, all that stuff back in the day. Yeah, 10/10/2021. I took another look at it to see who was requesting this after, the incident. And Moscow PD did it on 11/16. Then Andy Hoodle of the Idaho State Police. Remember I told you guys, I was like, that's interesting that Moscow did it on the 16th. Then the Idaho State Police did it on the 20th. But Idaho Police have it as Moscow PD. But ISP, I just happen to know who Andy Huddle is because of another case. And I was like, oh my God, that's ISP. Then on the 11/22, there was a C. Macy. And I could never figure out who C. Macy was. I just put in a request, though, to get that request of how they wrote all their stuff out since they're not anonymous. Just curious, because it was 11/22. Anyways. Okay. We'll come back to that. But Chief Jenkins has no idea who he's looking at, these 4 candidates. He certainly has no idea that just last month, Kohberger purchased a K-bar knife, sheath, and sharpener on Amazon for unknown purposes. What Chief Jenkins does know is that Kohberger is an incoming graduate student and teaching assistant in the well-regarded. So that means that he would have already been hired. Okay. And so WSU hires him because as a teaching assistant, TA, you're hired. Kohberger has applied for an internship with the Pullman Police Department. Chief Jenkins can see the guy is hyper-focused. Not much else stands out about him, good or bad. That's what the book says. The book says nothing stands out about him, good or bad. Now we hear Chief Jenkins is going on a world tour with a mic in my hand. But there's something odd about him that makes Jenkins say later he didn't think this guy would be able to build trust in his department. There's something anti-social about him. Oh, God, everybody else is saying how Bryan's just like, hey, can I get your address? How do we know that he really wasn't hired? He said they chit-chat for 30 minutes. Chief Jenkins winds up giving the internship to someone else, and he doesn't think much about the guy after that. Barely remembers his name even. I always said to myself, if Bryan didn't get the job, okay, because he did this all in March, right? If he didn't get the job, I wanted to know, when did he find out that he didn't get the job? Right? When did he find out that he didn't get the job? Because according to this book, he was already all, hey, he's going to WSU. Okay, now I'm looking, I'm going to go ahead and apply online to see if I can get this job at Pullman at the police department. But if I don't get it, so think about this. When people are talking about that Bryan was trying to work at a police station, it would have, that was always part of the plan, but he doesn't get hired, and that kind of ruins the plan. Well, what would make sense, okay, is that why didn't Bryan pick a school where he was going to get both? Why not go to WSU and actually go somewhere else where he's going to get his scholarship TA and working at a nearby police department? Right? Because that was like a big part of the plan. If this was always been planned in March, he was going to become, I'm going to kill people. I'm going to kill women. Right? Also, Bryan packs up his gear, his new knife included. Because remember now, he bought the knife in Pennsylvania, so he would have had to pack it and travel with it. Okay? And gets in his car for the long road trip to the other side of the country when he goes in June, at the end of June. Then this book reverts back to Elliot Rodgers and says Elliot Rodgers gave himself one last chance before planning his big day. He moved cities. He went from LA to Santa Barbara for college. I realized that my miserable, lonely, virgin life was going to continue, and my only hope was to give Santa Barbara a try. So he was going to go to Santa Barbara and see if he could identify him, reinvent himself, right? Elliot has a shit ton of money, though. He's a spoiled brat, right? Bryan Kohberger comes from no money. Okay. In late August, right before school starts, this August, WSU's famed criminology and criminal justice graduate program has attracted an international elite bunch, a self-described cohort of 11 students. The cohorts. So there's 11 students, 7 women and 4 men, who will be pursuing master's or PhD degrees. So one student comes from South Korea. Another is from Bangladesh, all over. Tijuana. Is that what that is? No, it's not right. At a meet and greet with the 20-odd faculty members, the students pile their paper plates high with mounds of Panda Express and size one another up. They make small talk and learn about their differing areas of interest. So ranging from cybercrime to human trafficking to police and domestic terrorism to drug crimes and drug courts. I was like, wait a second. I circled that because I'm like, I have never even, until this case with Megan Marshall and everything on Idaho's campus, I'm like, wait, what's this drug court shit? One person says he studies maps, a subject that others can't quite fathom he's interested in. He studies maps. At 42, Ben Roberts is the second oldest in the group. He suspects he's the only one from the West Coast. He looks at the others and thinks he's probably the only one who has ever used a chainsaw. So Ben Gay, this is Ben Roberts. Ben notices one of the students in particular. His name is Bryan Kohberger. Bryan stands out because he's painfully thin. His eyes move too quickly, and the bags under them are dark and too prominent for someone his age. Ben also notices that Bryan never takes off his jacket, even in the August heat. Ben assumes wrongly that he needs insulation on account of his thin frame. What? Ben does not know about Bryan's history with heroin. He doesn't know that Bryan might be keeping his forearms covered in public to hide all his track marks from his past addiction. Ben is flattered when Bryan comes over to chat with him. What? Bryan is doing a PhD, which makes him senior to Ben, who is in the master's program, because he's already done that. Bryan asks a lot of questions about Ben's background. The conversation kicks into high gear when Ben tells Bryan that he worked for the TSA. Oh my God, I love a cheap feel. He was head of security at a small airport. Now remember, Ben's older. Don't you think Bryan would have saw that too? Like, Ben's 42. So he was head of security, TSA baby, at this small airport. Bryan lights up. I've worked in security too, he says. Cool, says Ben. Where? Bryan becomes really vague now. Oh, back home. He doesn't say where home is exactly. Ben shares some experiences he thinks Bryan might have had himself. He tells Bryan that there were times at the airport when he found it particularly inelegant to have to exercise access control. That is, having to tell people who believed they had clearance to enter a certain area that in fact they didn't, and then barring their path. What a bunch of fucking nerds, man. Did you have that? What? I don't even, what are you talking about? You barring people? Oh, I don't see you have a pass. Oh, hey, you can't go over there. It's not for you. Woo! Bryan nods. Ben continues, and the worst I found is when people do have the clearance, but they haven't got the right paperwork on them. It's so embarrassing to have to stop them going through. What the fuck is this? What is this? Bryan says, I know exactly what you mean. Ben wonders for a split second if that is in fact true. It felt like he might have been stretching, he later said, but at the time, Ben went with the flow. Bryan seems very articulate, Ben thinks. He spits words out with the fluency and confidence of someone who expects to be listened to. Ben has no idea that Bryan is, in fact, giving a bravado performance of acting like he's playing the role of someone who he has never been, namely someone who belongs in the room. The silence, awkward introvert has been replaced for now by a confident, articulate, and intellectual. Wow. Why does everybody think that Bryan's smart? Just so we're clear, he had a 3.3 GPA out of 4.0. And he didn't get a 4.0 out of 4.0 scale until his master's. So, like, his undergrad, 3.3. Woo, whippity fucking shit. 3.3 sucks. What, Bryan, you weren't on the dean's list? Really weird, right? I do think he's smart. I don't get it. I think driving in circles before you're going to go kill people and getting on every camera possible is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. I think bringing a sheath to a knife party is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, Bryan's not smart. Bryan might be figuring that at WSU, he can start fresh. Well, isn't that where everybody goes to college? Like, they can start fresh? Like, you're not the hoe in high school, or you're not this, you're not that. I mean, come on. Like, this book is... James Patterson just did this for the money. Bella's right. This is the worst, like, writing. Like, my book could be better than this. Bryan might be figuring that at WSU, he can start fresh. Everybody can in college. Everybody can start fresh when they move. I mean, become the man he dreams of being. No one needs to know about his troubled past. Bryan turns from Ben and makes a beeline for the group of senior faculty members. Like a Wall Street CEO, one by one, he pumps their hands and works the room. I'm Bryan, he says, and I'm excited to be here. Wow. There's just, 11 students and 20 faculty members. And he's just working the room. So these 11 people, they dub themselves in the early fall. The cohort is sitting in a circle in a classroom in Wilson Short Hall. It's the third class in the research methodology course taught by their toughest grader, a red-headed French professor named Amelia, whose expertise is in sexually violent offenders. He sits to the right of her every time because he knows it means he'll be called on to present his assignment first as the professor makes her way around the circle. Bryan appears to like going first. He appears to think it gives him an advantage over all the Beckys in the room. What? Becky with the long, good hair, Becky. I think that's interesting. Usually an athlete would prefer to go last, thing that you had the advantage, because then you could see you're sizing it up. That's really interesting. Becky is a term used in the manosphere chat groups Bryan is familiar with. How? How do you know that? Bryan knows all about incels. That is, involuntary celibates. Incels are members of a movement of frustrated men, all virgins, that sprang up on 4chan in 2014, just hours after Elliot Rodger committed mass murder and then suicide. The act that Bryan studied back in Professor Ramlin's class at DeSales, the idea of the movement started in Rodgers' honor, is that one day the incels will succeed in their beta revolution. What the fuck? And overthrow the Beckys, the Stacys, and the Chads who have managed to make the betas feel so small and rejected. The group is increasingly associated with violence. Now, I think it's interesting then to hear that Gonsalves was talking about being an alpha, right off the rip. Bryan looks around the class. These women could all be considered Beckys, defined by incels as feminists who dye their hair, post stupid opinions, and need to be the dominant ones in relationships. By contrast, Stacys are stereotypically what? Used to male attention, prolific on social media, and date hunky rich chads. This is insane. This is insane. According to incel lore, Beckys need to be put in their place. Is this like a sex thing? Okay. You guys identify. I identify as a Becky. I identify as a Stacy. Becky with the... After Bryan gives his presentation, the Becky next to him starts hers. He leans in closely, paying attention. As soon as she's done, he begins his offensive. He peppers her with questions that he appears to think show how smart he is and how dumb she is. Did she think about this theory? And what about that one? And had she read this book? She's getting annoyed. He can see that. Bryan looks over at Ben as if seeking approval. But Ben looks away. Fuck you. I have nothing to do with this shit. You little fucking fucker. You little incel, you, Bryan. Some of the women are visibly pissed. Bryan doesn't seem bothered by this discomfort. Elliot Rodger would have been proud. Wow. It's been a long day. Bryan is tired. He's sitting in the back row in the class of Dr. Hillary, a recent graduate herself who teaches a course on the role of cultural issues like immigration and homelessness in criminal justice. Bryan isn't particularly interested in Dr. Hillary's course. Incels might consider her another Becky. Jesus. She is an advocate for immigrant women and girls who are fleeing men. What? Incels are reportedly at the heart of the rising gender-based violence. In 2018, a Canadian self-described incel, what is this, was motivated, he said, by a hatred of women to plow a van into a crowded Toronto sidewalk, killing 11 people. He's been sentenced to prison for life, and he's becoming an icon in the movement. Dr. Hillary interrupts Bryan, she says suddenly, and she asks him a question about immigration that he hasn't prepared for. Did he even hear it correctly? Shit. He doesn't know that one. Shit. Fuck. The Beckys have turned around and are staring at him. So is Ben, who observed later, you could kind of tell that he was trying to say something, but it just wouldn't come out. He couldn't find the words. What the fuck? Dr. Hillary looked shocked. Bryan, what is wrong with you? Why aren't you paying attention to me? Ben said Bryan looked like a dog caught in a thunderstorm. If his ears could have been pinned back, they would have been pinned back. He was just stiff as a board, didn't move, didn't speak, just kind of wide-eyed. The hell is going on? Fortunately for Bryan, this happens in the final few minutes of class, so he gets more or less saved by the bell. He's the last to leave the room, so no one sees his face as he's headed to his car. No one can see if he's red-hot angry or red-hot ashamed. Either way, the stuttering, awkward guy, the real self he's tried to hide and leave in Pennsylvania, just appeared like a jack in the box. Look at these play on words, jack in the box. You know what I mean? This is sick. He knows that you can put him back, but you can't erase the discomfort in what just happened. Are you kidding me? You think that in a class, if I'm just dozing off, Lana. Oh, hey, sorry, what was the question? Oh, yeah, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh my God, I would embarrassed. Fuck, I'd be like, make this class more interesting. You're fucking losing me, broad. I mean, but that, I guess this is different personalities. I wouldn't be embarrassed at all by that. I'd be like, what was the question? Can you repeat it? You might want to repeat the whole thing. Keep going back because I wasn't listening, so you might want to call on somebody else. That would have been me. Like, sorry, I don't have an answer for you. Months later, the people physically close to Bryan, the members of his, little cohort over here, looked for the smallest clues as to why it all went down. There will likely be a trial at which they hope to find answers. But yeah, I have a lot of questions for all you people that were with Bryan every single day, and you could not tell that he was about to commit a mass. You guys are criminology PhDers going to get. You guys could not see that you were sitting next to somebody that is about to tick a ticking time bomb. You couldn't see that. You guys need to get into a new profession. He drives when he can't sleep, when he needs to clear his head, and when the nightmares and visual snow recur. Nightmares. This is the first hearing about some nightmares. That's why he drives. Him and Dylan should fucking hang out. And when the nightmares and visual snow reoccur, which they are doing now, tap, tap, tap. He's back in the basement and on Tapatalk, the online message board, back when he was a teenager. So out of the blue, yeah, right now, Bryan has no one to share his hopelessness with, even if he could find the words to do it. The others don't seem to want to hang out. What? What are you talking about? He's too busy stalking people. He knows the cohorts gathers on weekends for a beer. No one has invited him to join them. I said, what are you talking about? The Asians over here offering up her pee on a platter. Come sizzle drink this. Just like Elliot Rodger, who swung between two college communities, one in Santa Barbara and the other 11 miles away. How do you reinvent yourself 11 miles away? What? Bryan has one other option to find a Stacy willing to date him. Moscow, Idaho, across the state border. Holy shit. This is where this is going. So he's like fuck, I'm not going to date the Asian broad that wants to like rim me. I'm going to find a Stacy I'm going to go find a Vandal. He parks the car in town and heads to a place he's read about online, the Mad Greek. They serve vegan pizza. Dude, the owner came out and said that he never did. This is wild. As soon as he walks inside, he notices the blonde waitress with her long hair, blue eyes. She would definitely be marked as a Stacy by the incels. She's the epitome of women who turned down Elliot Rodger. Her name is Maddie. Like Elliot's childhood friend, Maddie, who grew into someone who ignored Rodger. I was like, wow. Will she notice Bryan? She comes over to ask what he'd like. He knows what he'd like. Her. Then don't you think he would just say that? It's pitch black. August 21st, 2022. We have body cam of that day. It's pitch black, but anyone can see Maddie sitting at her vanity as clear as day through her window. She has no idea who is out there in the parking lot looking. But neighbors like Lexi, oh my God, Lexi Pattinson is her neighbor? Lexi Pattinson went to school with fucking Emma Bailey. That's who I want to interview. Lexi, where are you? Lexi, I want to know what... Lexi is the one that says that, dude, I thought it was Emma Bailey until I heard that there was a knife involved. She said that she lives right over there. But neighbors like Lexi see her nightly routine. Now, how do you... What the hell, Lexi? You see her nightly routine. They know that she always takes her time putting on her face. Foundation, then blush, eyeshadow, mascara, or fake lashes. Sometimes she uses a curling iron to style her long blonde hair. Anyone who didn't know Maddie's name would learn it in an instant because her letters, they spell out in the window. Even her quilt is pink. A passerby who stopped and stared would know she has a boyfriend because on weekends, he sits on the bed when Maddie and the other girls model clothes for Instagram and TikTok. What? She tags the boyfriend on social media. His name is Jake. Recently, the boyfriend brought Maddie cookies and flowers that stands in a vase on her dresser. God, it seems like Lexi was a stalker. Lexi, how do you know all of this, girl? Duh, I'm friends with them and I follow them on social media. I live right there. I also want a beer. Her mom, or at least a woman who looks exactly like Maddie, often pops in. And so does an older, graceful looking woman, Maddie's grandmother. Anyone can see just from watching that Maddie is close to all these family members. What? She's even making a little quilt for someone, a baby. What? Who is? Maddie is making a quilt for someone. She's even making a little quilt for someone, a baby. Who's having a baby? You guys, who's having a baby? Kaylee, one of her friends, often pops in from next door. These two are obviously close. They pore over their phones, comparing social media posts, taking photos and videos of each other. They're so immersed in their phones and their coziness that they never think to look further than the sanctuary of their yard. They don't see anyone out there staring. Corporal Brett Payne of Moscow police later alleges, based on AT&T cell phone records, that the pings Bryan's cell phone made off of Moscow cell towers, but that was what Bryan did. Payne alleges that he was there at least 12 times between August 21st and November 13th, almost always late at night, cloaked in darkness. Why are you using between the 21st and November 13th? Where are you getting that information from? Because I thought it was June 2022. Almost as late at night, cloaked in the darkness. The theory among Maddie's friends is that she rejected him. So he watched, waiting. Elliot Roger wrote of reuniting with a childhood friend named Maddie in the months before the day of the... Get the fuck out of here. In Elliot's life, she was a spoiled, popular USC girl who partied with her hot, popular, blonde-haired clique of friends. My hatred for them all grew from each picture I saw of her profile. They were the kind of beautiful, popular people who lived pleasurable lives and would look down on me as inferior scum, never accepting me as one of them. They were my enemies. They represented everything that was wrong with this world. Corporal Payne alleges that on the night of August 21st, Bryan was there at King Road. He doesn't allege that. Between 10:34 and 11:35 p.m. At 11:37 p.m., at the junction of Farm Road and Pullman Highway, on his way back to Pullman, Bryan is pulled the fuck over by Latah County Sheriff's Deputy Corporal Duke of Borough. His car doesn't have a front plate. It's registered in Pennsylvania, where front plates aren't required. But is that why he's pulled over, though? He'll need to change that in Washington and Idaho, Duke tells him. Bryan says okay. So they're saying that he got pulled over because he didn't have a front license plate. And he'll need to change that in Washington and Idaho, Duke tells him. Bryan says okay. He's smooth with the officer. Natural. Really? Because that's not what Ann Taylor and them all say. They're saying that he gets like yappy, like, why you need my number? Why you need my phone number? The officer has no clue as to what Bryan is really doing in Moscow. If Bryan is asked about it, which he will be, what? He will be asked about it? He'll deny that he was doing anything other than going out for a drive like he always does when under stress. What the fuck? So you're saying you think that Bryan's going to be testifying? So why was he pulled over again? I cannot wait for this body cam. He often goes out stargazing, he'll say. The police can't see into his mind. No one can. Even though the people out here in the Pacific Northwest do try, boy, do they try. What? This is nuts. Okay, Casey. Casey's a WSU freshman majoring in psychology and minoring in criminology. Her largest class is the undergraduate criminal justice course with Professor John Schneider, with white hair and a mustache. Dr. Schneider is one of the most popular professors in the department. He's the reason Casey wanted to come to WSU. She's so excited. Yes, Dr. Schneider. Whew. But as she sits attentively during Schneider's first class, Casey encounters something off-putting. Rather, someone off-putting. Holy fuck, who is this guy? The professor is talking, and he talks for 40 long minutes, often calling on class members in his fun way. Just matter of fact, like fun. He's a tall, thin guy with bulging eyes stands in front of the class, facing them the entire time. He has a coffee in his hand. He fiddles with it. He's a fiddler. He fidgets. I never saw him fidget, by the way, in court. Casey wonders, who the fuck is he? And why is he staring? The way he holds himself. Not confidence exactly, but self-importance. Finally, Professor Snyder introduces him and says, "This is your new TA, Bryan Kohberger." A couple of slides of a nice-looking family come onto the projection screen. You think someone that's trying to be cool is going to put, "Hi, I'm Bryan," he tells the class. "I'm here to continue my degree from Pennsylvania. I've got a master's in psychology. Here's my family." Here's my family. What? Get the fuck out of here. Here's my family. Here's my family. "Hi, my name's Bryan. I'm here to continue my degree from Pennsylvania. I've got a master's in psychology. Here's my family." They look normal, Casey thinks. Bryan tells them he'll be here with Professor Snyder regularly and he'll be grading their papers. Then he sits down. Why didn't Bryan just sit at a desk in the front row until he was introduced, Casey wonders. Her neighbor whispers to her that this guy is weird. Casey smirks. Casey sees Bryan twice a week. Every time she has a class with Professor Snyder, she must be on that Tuesday, Thursday schedule. There are two TAs, both guys. One often has his laptop in front of him. Bryan just sits there staring at the class, fiddling with his fucking cup of coffee. He doesn't say anything. It's just so strange. He just sits there staring. Where he's communicating, Casey noticed is in his grading. He's very talkative in his grading. She can tell he puts a lot of thought into making her papers. He gives her A's. So if he's giving her A's, where is this "I'm grading girls harder"? He gives her A's and writes a lot of commentary. She assumes that's because she's good at writing essays. She doesn't think she's a standout student, though. Until, that is, she hears from some of her female classmates that he's not so generous with their grades. And when he thinks they've gotten something wrong, he writes pages and pages explaining why. "You dumb bitch, listen up. I told you that is not what that means." He is tough, they say. Pages and pages on their what? I want to see these essays. You guys do know that Bryan has the worst handwriting. The absolute worst fucking dog shit handwriting, okay? It looks like a 2-year-old. So do you think he's got this just writing pages of this shitty ass handwriting? Like, that's what you would be embarrassed of, is your handwriting. So you wouldn't write anything. You would just A, B, C, write. If you're going to talk about embarrassing, that handwriting is embarrassing. But and when he thinks they've gotten something wrong, he writes pages and pages explaining why. He is tough, they say. They think it's because they're women. Walking to class one time, a couple of classmates tell Casey they've emailed Professor Snyder about it. Wow, Casey thinks that's a step. Exactly. Wow, that's a step. That was my comment too. I'm like, wow, you emailed the professor saying, this guy is grading us. Like, look at this shit we're getting. Which, okay. October 2022. The weather hovers between fall and winter. It's bitterly cold, but the first snow has yet to arrive. After class around 5 p.m., Ben Roberts is milling around in Wilson Short Hall when he bumps into Bryan Kohberger, who offers to give him a lift home. This was hilarious. This was one of my favorite chapters. Okay, this is like Bryan Kohberger, I think, had a gay experience. And this is actually what I think could have triggered him. Nobody wants to talk about this gay experience that could have triggered him. Well, I want to talk about it. I want to talk about, did Ben Roberts and Bryan Kohberger bang? That's my next live title. Now, why would Lana ever say that? Well, I'm glad that she asked. Here it is. Ben bangs into Bryan. Bryan's like, oh, you need a ride? Ben hesitates. He lives only a few minutes away, but he does not need a ride. Or I'm sorry, but he does need a ride. And he's curious. He's curious. And he's curious. Ben wants to understand what underlies Bryan's antagonistic behavior towards the women in class. What? So he makes a decision, Ben does. He accepts Bryan's invitation for a ride home. Ben gets into Bryan's white Elantra. Bryan keeps the car's interior clean and tidy. The conversation begins straightforward, at least Ben's mind. They talk about some of the negative impacts of social media. I mean, how long was this drive? Ben says he believes that social media encourages people to stay within their little bubbles of like-minded people. Well, duh, because normally, like, if you start arguing with people on social media, then you just get blocked. Dating app searches, for example, dating app searches? Well, because you're putting down what you like and what you don't like. You're also swiping right or left based on what somebody looks like. Okay? And they're matching you based on what you're swiping. You have to both swipe the same way to be bubbled up. Fucking idiots. I cannot believe these type of people are getting PhDs. Ben points out that these freaking apps are designed algorithmically to keep men and women in certain groups. Bryan gets personal. Are you seeing anyone? Listen, how can this guy say Bryan's getting personal when this guy's talking about dating apps and social apps, okay? And so Bryan just simply asked the question was, are you seeing anyone? And since Ben is gay, okay, maybe Bryan is gay. And that's why he's asking, are you seeing anyone? No, says Ben. And he says, and I'm fine with that. Ben doesn't add something he doesn't think Bryan knows, and that is none of his business anyways. He's not straight. That's what it says in the book. I'm not going to tell him that I'm gay. Ben doesn't add something he doesn't think Bryan knows. Well, maybe, so it's just your opinion that Bryan doesn't know, but maybe Bryan knows. Maybe that's why he was asking. He wants to change the topic, but Bryan wants to talk about women, what he thinks of them. If Bryan thinks so poorly of women, maybe he likes men. So why wouldn't this gay guy be like, do you like guys then? Do you want to date, like, have you ever dated a guy? Like, that's what I would have asked now. He tells Ben that he believes in traditional gender roles. The implication being that their female colleagues are wasting their time. Why do they even come to class? They have no business pursuing master's degrees. Essentially, Bryan believes that men should be making the money and women should be homemakers. Bryan, I will fuck you up. All right, listen here, you little fucking pound cake. He's going to be someone's pound cake. Listen up, Bryan. I ain't no fucking homemaker over here, okay? Bryan's trying to be like, wait, what? I was trying to get my dick sucked, but God. Ben. Sorry. Let's get back. Oh, shit. Bryan, it's okay. This book, it may suck, but Lana makes it fun. Oh, God. Oh, God. Ben thinks the sediment is tasteless as well as it's odd. It's odd. For someone who's chosen to attend WSU, a progressive academic community where women outnumber men. Like, are you an idiot, Bryan? You didn't do your research? It's crawling with women who are going to be in power positions, and you think you're going to come to WSU and think that you're going to tell women to get in the kitchen? The department's head is a woman, Ben's thinking to himself. Dr. Melanie Angela, who is interested in feminist theories, no less in researching comparative homicides, specifically violent homicides. She also has a wider interest in criminology theories, including feminist theorizations of crime. But Ben is even more horrified by what Bryan says next in the car. This is all happening in a car ride. But Ben is even more horrified by what Bryan has to say next. Or in quotes, Bryan says, I can walk into any social gathering and get any girl I want. He was horrified by what Bryan said. Then, did you tell him? Not with those fucking eyes. Not with that skinny rail. Man, look at you, rail. You are a rail. Okay? Not with that frame. Not with that face. Ben is just horrified. What Bryan thinks that, in quotes, this little cock says to me, I can walk into any social gathering and get any girl I want. It's an extraordinary thing to say. And in Ben's mind, it puts Bryan at creep level. Dude, that's what every jock says. That's what every single jock says in high school. That's what every frat guy says. Is this real life here? I can get any girl I want. That's said by everybody. That's even said by girls, damn it, Ben. It's just creep level. And not just because Ben doubts, given Bryan's weird physical appearance, that there's any truth to that boast. Ben doesn't rate himself highly as a specimen of physical attractiveness, but this guy, he looks more like, Gollum than George Clooney, Ben thinks. God, Ben. I wonder if Ben's reading this like, Jesus Christ, James Patterson. Are you serious? When all this shit you wrote? He doesn't know that Bryan has in fact seen a girl he wants and cannot get. A beautiful girl with long blonde hair and blue eyes. Oh my God, James Patterson, I cannot believe you just wrote that. But he can get an Asian, right? He can't get the blonde hair, blue eyes, but he can get the, you know how many guys love Asian women? You know that like Asian porn is like seriously like up there? So why did Ben accept the ride? Well, because Ben was curious, right? But wait, this is all happening in a car ride. Bryan continues talking, seemingly looking for a sign of agreement from Ben. When they arrive at Ben's place, he gets out of the car hoping they're done. They're not done. The fuck? They're not. Bryan asks to use his bathroom. Holy shit. Are you kidding me? Bryan is driving this guy home and then says, you know what? Do you care? Can I take a shit in your house? And Ben's like, yep, come on in, buddy. Oh, God, no, I don't. You think Bryan being a germaphobe is like, yeah, let me come use your bathroom? The guy who has gloves on and like, you know, he's just a big OCD germaphobe. Let me come and just, yeah. And then this part. Hey, buddy, can I use your bathroom really quick? I really got to drain the snake. Yeah, I guess so. If you can't hold it. Bryan asks to use his bathroom. He lingers in Ben's tiny sardine can studio apartment until 7:45. They left at 5. Ben, you can't get out of a conversation from so Bryan stays in this man's apartment after he takes a piss. He lingers, it says. He lingers in Ben's tiny sardine can studio apartment until 7:45. Both men remain standing for the conversation. Who stands for 2 hours and like 30 minutes? It's like a 5-minute drive to his apartment. Both men remain standing for the conversation because Ben has only 2 chairs and one of them is piled high with stuff. You wouldn't say, let me move this stuff and take it into your room. Ben does not consider these hours well spent. As for Bryan, he's probably flying high, thinking about a nice big blowjob. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not what it says. As for Bryan, he probably realized Ben wasn't the kindred spirit he hoped he was. You guys, first of all, where's dinner? So Bryan's just standing there and Ben's standing there for 2 hours and 30 minutes and it's during dinner time and they don't say to each other, well, hey, do you want to go grab a beer and grab some dinner? Let's just look at each other for 2 hours and 30 minutes. And the reason I'm saying 2 hours and 30 minutes is because if you bump into each other at 5 o'clock on campus, then you get into his car and then you drive on over to your apartment, which is right there. What, 5:15? Now, Ben, maybe you understand why Bryan is a rail and he's not eating. Maybe you'd say, hey, buddy, it's time for dinner, man. Okay, I got this tube steak. You want it? Doesn't it seem like they maybe would have gotten a little, I don't know, touchy, handsy, feely? Want to pet my cat? You guys, I just couldn't put this book down. Is it just me? What kind of steak? Tube steak. Yeah, you want some? I don't buy any of that. Because it takes 2 to tango. Ben, tell him you have to, hey, I gotta go. Act like your phone rang. I don't know. Go in the bathroom and take a shit for an hour and see if he's just sitting there waiting. Really strange. Because it just takes 2 to tango. And how Bryan would just be up in there for 2 hours and 30 minutes is like, what? And so, like, I would love to know what the 2 hours and 30-minute conversation was about because all of the stuff that's in the book is from the car ride, according to James Patterson. Okay, now, September 23rd, 2022. The way the cohort hears it, this is what goes down in Professor Snyder's office. So this is hearsay. Dr. Snyder calls Bryan in to talk about all the complaints. Women have emailed him saying the TA is grading the female students unfairly. And some of his cohort say his interruptions in class are pathetic. Professor Snyder informs Bryan of what's being said, and he suggests he changes ways. Hey, this is what's being said right now, buddy. Stop interrupting the women, he tells the strange young man. Or he says something along those lines. They're complaining. Stop writing them essays on their essays. It's offensive. Be generous and be brief. A rumor goes around that Snyder makes the point that the undergraduates cannot be expected to have the same level of knowledge as Bryan. Snyder is trying to be helpful, but apparently, or so they hear later, none of them was in the room, obviously. Bryan's anger spills out of him. Fuck it. No more pointing. No more point pretending. Something sends him out of control. They deserve what they get, he says. They deserve what they get. What? Fuck it. They deserve what they get, Snyder. The professor sees that Bryan might be smart, but his Achilles heel is a big ego and a high opinion of himself. And there's something deeper that sets Bryan off. Something ugly. Professor Snyder thinks he hears Bryan mutter, "They don't belong in the classroom." What? I think he muttered, "They don't belong in the classroom" or something. Wait, what? So, WSU guys were told, do not talk to anybody about this case. Do not talk to anybody. Don't do any interviews. Don't do this. Da, 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 da. So here's Professor Snyder that is just having cups of coffee with James Patterson and Vicky Ward. Sounds about accurate. They don't belong in the classroom, but he can't be sure. So in his report on the altercation to the higher ups on the faculty, he focuses on what he cannot ignore: the young man's anger. What? This is the first time that we've ever heard of Bryan's anger. Isn't that weird? Like his MO of stealing something. Okay, we've heard that from that Bayless guy, then Connie, then or like lying, the Cassie broad, like anger. So this is the first time. Okay. So a week or so later, on October 3rd, department chair Melanie Angela and graduate director Dale Clitus called Bryan in to discuss his lack of quote unquote norms of professional behavior. Norms of professional behavior. Professor Clitus is there as a witness. So there's a record of what happens in the meeting. That's customary, which it turns out will be needed. Bryan listens, but he doesn't hear them. He's angry, defiant. I'm like, wow. He says he wants to meet his critics head on. Have a discussion in class. Explain his grading. He graded his students poorly because they didn't know the topic well. After he leaves, the faculty members are concerned. What do you mean the faculty members are concerned? There's just two people in there, faculty members. Clitus and Dale and what's her name? Melanie, right? Melanie Angela. After he leaves, the faculty members are concerned. There's no way Bryan's discussion with his students is likely to go the way he thinks it will. Now, November. That was October 3rd, and then they kind of jump and they do this November shit. So why are they going out of order on purpose? Like, he's been going kind of in order right here with the whole Bryan saga. So here, James Patterson says, November of 2022, Ben Roberts is still in shock about the delusional self-regard Bryan expressed in the conversation that revealed his offensive view of gender roles. But increasingly, Bryan's appearance becomes even more startling. So, but that was in September when he had you over for, when you had him over for, when was that? It was October. So Ben's over here startled. Oh my God, Bryan's withering away. Well, did you think to yourself, oh my God, remember that time he came over your apartment? He was just talking away and he just didn't eat anything. Ben assumes that Bryan is as stressed as they all are with finals looming. The workload is almost intolerable. And none of the students appear to be in perfect health. In class, Bryan looks positively ill. Like he's physically deteriorating. He looked like the Walking Dead. Ben said, I mean, we're talking, his eyes were just completely dark most of the time. He just looked gone, blasted. Would that mean like that he was high, you think? I don't fucking know. Like this wasn't just sleep deprivation. It was more serious ongoing. He heard the rumors that Bryan got reprimanded by Professor Snyder, but Bryan doesn't offer any information. Ben goes to WSU Student Care Network and fills out a form indicating his concern. I about fell out of my chair. I'm like, wait, what? Ben goes to WSU's Student Care Network and fills out a form indicating his concern. He wants to send it to the administration. The school's website states that these reports can be made anonymously. But before pressing submit, oh, here's another caveat. But before pressing submit, Ben looks for the anonymous reporting function. He can't see that. His anonymity will be protected for sure. I mean, what the heck? Ben wants to help his exhausted classmate. The fuck you do? You would go talk to him. You'd say something to him. Ben wants to help his exhausted classmate. Oh, and that's the way to do it. Anonymously report him. But he doesn't want Bryan searching out and finding the person who submitted the form. What? Think about all of this shit. He doesn't want this coming back to him. There's something about this guy that is just too weird. Then go to the police. Can you imagine the Gonsalves is reading this right now? Well, God, why didn't you just press send? Ben sounds like a scorned lover. So Ben deletes what he's typed, never imagining that the act of pushing the backspace button on his computer will come to haunt him. I said, wow, I said, this is a dramatic gay guy, it sounds like. Because again, it's just ironic. Again, no proof, right? Like, but so here in James' book, he puts that part in, okay? And then when I turn the page, I'm like, why wasn't this before that? Because this next chapter is October 14th. So, and he's doing it that way for a reason. So now think about this. That was supposedly November of 2022. And then the next is chapter 39. It's like October 14th. And I'm like, why would you go out of order there? What are you doing? Bryan is driving his white 2015 Hyundai Elantra when he hears the siren. Damn, again. He pulls over and sits there as WSU police officer is getting out of her cruiser and approaching him. Bryan rolls down his window, looking as calm as possible, even though his heart is racing. I put, haha, really? Hello, officer. Now, we all see October 14th. Does Bryan look like deathly ill? Does Bryan look when he got pulled over with his dad those two times? Does he look deathly ill? Think about it. Wearing a body cam, she starts by telling him the stop is being audio and video recorded. Then she says, I think you know why I stopped you. You ran the red light. We all seen that, okay? What actually happened was I was stuck in the middle of the intersection, Bryan says, so I was forced to turn left. Yeah, I was behind you the whole time. I find it hard to believe. So Bryan knew that the cop was just riding his ass. She explained that she watched Bryan enter the intersection illegally. She asked for his license, registration, and insurance. Bryan hands him over. He's cooperative. He apologizes profusely to a woman. Like, bitch, why aren't you in the kitchen? I would have never got this ticket. He apologizes profusely. I said, no, because he didn't apologize profusely. He just, I think, said, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be. So Bryan plows on. getting in deep, all that practice being verbal in classes paying off. I'm like, what is going on? He tells the cop that he's from a rural part of Pennsylvania, as his vehicle registration shows, and when it comes to pulling into an intersection like he just did, it never occurred to me that was actually something wrong. Back home, you could drive like that with impunity. His performance works. He gets away with it, just like he did back in August. No, the officer lets him go with a warning. For Bryan, it's likely an empowering moment. Back at DeSales, in Professor Ramblin's class, he learned that a month before the day of retribution, Elliot Rogers was paid a visit by police officers. They left with no clue that he was planning a mass murder. It's possible that Bryan, too, can get away with anything he wants. I said, with this logic, did Bryan want to get pulled over then? Was he trying to get pulled over then? Based off of this logic about he was pulled over almost, a month. It was a month before. And just like Elliot Rogers, like you would have to do something to get pulled over. Fall 2022. I said, why no date on this one? Interesting. She asked Bryan, her neighbor, to install a home video surveillance system. All these other ones have dates. This was just like the fall 2022. Well, she noticed that her home in the Steptoe Village apartments has been broken into, and various items were moved around, but nothing was stolen. Now, that's not normal for Bryan. Bryan would steal something to go use it for drugs. Bryan is always floating around the place. It's where a lot of the grad students live. He's floating around the place. What? It's where a lot of grad students live, and they've gotten friendly. And she knows he's into tech because he's always talking about how good he is with computers. What? She can see him on his computer at his window late into the night. And I'm like, what the? Dude, everybody is a stalker in this book. Everybody is stalking in this book. And they'd say, no, they're just observant. You can't have it both ways. You can't say what that person is doing is considered stalking, but if that person does it, you're being observant. It's all got to flow. She can see him on his computer at his window late into the night. I'm going to just shut up. So instead of going to the police, she goes to Bryan, who agrees to help place cameras around her home. You guys, it's 2022. If somebody broke into my apartment, I would have pictures on my cell phone. I would have pictures of my door being whatever, like stabbed at, whatever, to fucking jarred open. I'd have pictures of that. I'd have pictures of my shit being moved around. Everybody takes pictures of everything. You document. That's what we do. Right? He could not be more helpful. So instead of going to the police, she goes to Bryan, who agrees to help place cameras around her home. Maybe did she think that Bryan worked for the police? He could not be more helpful. And the new cameras work really, really well. She's so grateful. She gives him a blowjob. That's not in there. She's grateful until she looks at the cameras and at what she can see from her phone. There's been a rumor that Bryan followed a woman student to her car. Excuse me, where is this just thrown in? Okay, who is writing this? Listen to this sentence. Listen to this paragraph. He just could not be more helpful. And the new cameras work really, really well. She's grateful until ... She looks at the cameras and at what she can see from her phone. There's been a rumor that Bryan followed the woman student to her car. Wait, that's what she can see from her phone? Like, you would expect to, like, she looks at the cameras and at what she can see from her phone. Which is what? What can she see from her phone? What the fuck, Vicky Ward? And then, but no, the next sentence is, there's been a rumor that Bryan followed a woman student to her car. And then she says, this technology is smart, but so simple. Anyone with the passcode or the password can log on and see inside her apartment. This must have not been edited, this page, because that sentence is just so out of place. Anyone, but there's only one person other than her who knows the password. Bryan. Now, let me tell you guys something. Again, if Bryan knew the password, Bryan would have to get, that's like all your history with when you're getting on the internet, to get on that app, to go to do that, to go ahead and watch her changing in her bedroom, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? That would come out in a Cellbrite. That would come out in the data dump off of his phone. Unless Bryan went and bought a burner and was using a burner to then download this app to then watch her on this burner. Also, the internet at where they live is, they don't have their own router. It's all campus shit. So yeah, good luck. Like, it's all there. You go get the router. Go check it out. Absolute. See what devices are on there. All of this was, you won't have to speculate to any of this. This would be able to be found out. Her mind races once this is in the fall. Her mind races. He's seemed off lately. What do you mean her mind races? Change the fucking password, ho. I'm sorry, but this is just so stupid. Her mind races. He's seemed off lately. Strange. You don't even know him. What do you mean he seemed off lately? That's never made sense to me. If you just meet somebody in, I don't know, late August, and here in the fall, September, oh, they just seem off lately. God, wow. I don't even know this person. I don't know if they've seemed off. Like, this is who they are. I don't know. I don't know them. I just met them. Really strange. He seemed off lately. Strange. He asked her to go out for coffee and seemed mad when she said no. What? She was over there really upset that Bryan did not want to penetrate her, according to Amazon, or whatever. What was it? The Amazon Prime show or the Dateline or whatever the hell it was, whatever leak it was. He got really mad when I said no about going to get coffee. Really mad. She changes her password. Oh, good girl. She has no idea that just 2 months after this, so then that's where I'm like, okay, 2 months. I guess this was in September. You know, she has no idea that in just 2 months after this incident, her brief encounters with Bryan will become a newspaper story that goes viral. She has no idea that she will need to shield her identity, hide from the media and the public. Really? Because it seems like she didn't, because she must have talked to somebody, because y'all got the story. What is people talking about? She never went to the cops, so there was no report. So she clearly talked to somebody. You know, it just blows my mind. No idea that her experience will make her a potential witness in a murder trial. Well, it wouldn't have if she doesn't say anything. Nobody would have known about it. That Chief Jenkins will say that investigators believe there was likely a connection between Bryan's work on her security and what happened at 1122 King Road. I said, wait, what the hell is this sentence? She has no idea that her experience will make her a potential witness in a murder trial. That Chief Jenkins will say that investigators believe there was likely a connection between Bryan's quote unquote work on her security and what happened at 1122 King Road. I said, what does this even mean? She has no idea of who the weird guy with the bulging eyes really is or of what is about to happen. What? What would his work on her security have anything to do with the 1122 King Road killings? And what is Chief Jenkins talking about? Chief Jenkins doesn't even know about it. There's no police report. November 2nd. Less than a month after their previous meeting, because it was October 14th, with Bryan. So the cohorts, they hear the graduate director, Clitus, Dale Clitus. Just so you guys know, it's like Willis, but come on. And the department chair, Melanie, Angela, are once again confronting Bryan about his behavior. And I said to myself, why? Why are you confronting him about his behavior on November 2nd? Okay, you just talked. What happened between October 14th and November 2nd? Like, usually a book would tell you that. Less than a month after their previous meeting with Bryan. So the cohort hears, and when they say that, it's the group of friends, they hear. So again, this is hearsay. They hear that Bryan was once again confronted. Bryan about his behavior. There are no friendly suggestions this time. Doctors Clitus and Melanie, Angela tell Bryan that what he already knows. Short of a miracle, he'll be fired. That's what it says. Short of a miracle, buddy, you are going to be fired. You understand that? What? November 2nd. You guys, what? Here's Bryan as if this is what's in the book. As if it's from Clueless. As if Bryan is so pissed. They'd be lucky to get close to him. What? And wait. Okay, wait. Oh, wait. Hold on. That was the wrong paragraph. I was like, what? Okay, back up. The cohort hears that the discussion about grading had not gone well. So Bryan supposedly had, hey guys, let me explain to you why I write paragraphs upon paragraphs on your essays and why I grade so toughly. Okay, like here, woo. So the cohorts, they hear that this discussion did not go well. Women had later complained to Dr. Snyder and said Bryan had stared at them. You guys, Bryan had stared at them. That he'd positioned himself by the door and they'd had to get uncomfortably close to him to exit the room. One suggested he followed her to her car dead. Dude, UWSU little fucking, you guys set this man off to kill. That's what the book is saying. One suggested he followed her to her car. And I'm over here like writing in my book like, what? No, and none of these people went to the police. And then that's when the paragraph says, as if Bryan is so pissed, they'd be lucky to get close to him. As if Bryan is so pissed, they'd be lucky to get close to him. He has stopped showing up to teach What? He has stopped showing up to teach. So 2 weeks ago, John Snyder had formally notified Bryan he had failed to meet expectations as a TA. 2 weeks ago. What? You mean like the October 14th stuff? The students assume that Professor Melanie Angela wants to give students the benefit of the doubt, and that is why she and Professor Clitus are giving Bryan a chance. Today, Dr. Melanie Angela and Clitus suggest an improvement plan for Bryan on November 2nd, a way for him to show them that he can lose. He can lose his little behavioral problem, and he can begin to behave professionally at an institution that expects that of both students and teachers. This little improvement plan, they agree, will be emailed to Bryan, and they will meet again in a month to see how it's going. This is on November 2nd. Okay. Bryan is listening. Bryan's career as a graduate student is over. What? It says Bryan listens, period. Bryan listens. Bryan's career as a graduate student is over, period. In this room now, they're just going through the motions, period. His bubble is bursting, period. His dream of a new life, a new persona, is being cut short, period. Professor Snyder emails the plan to him the next day, November 3rd. It contains words like courtesy and respect. Do you understand that you'd have to have a source for that, James Patterson? So you've seen this email. The kind of thing he considers politically correct bullshit. So they want change. ... What? They're like creating this kill. This is what's all leading up to why he snapped. But I thought that he planned it in March of 2022. Come on. On page 118 of his manifesto, the Elliot Rogers wrote that he planned to carry out his day of retribution scheme in November. At first, he'd planned to do it on Halloween. No wonder why no wonder why Bethany and Dylan was pissed on the Halloween. Yeah, he said it was the ultimate party night. Wow. There would literally be thousands of people crowded together who I could kill with ease, and the goal was kill everyone to utterly destroy that wretched town. But then I saw there were too many cops walking around. The day of retribution would have to be a normal party weekend. So I set it for sometime during November. You guys like that, Dylan? In the early hours of November 13th, 2022, police allege Bryan leaves his home in Pullman at 2:47 a.m. His phone shows he's moving southeast of Pullman home. 1 minute later, his phone stops reporting. And I'm like, what? At 2:47 a.m., his phone shows he's moving southeast of his Pullman home. Now, James Patterson, I know that you've watched all of these motions. You know that that's not true. You know that he didn't turn it off 1 minute later, right? But you just got to keep on with that narrative. Whew. The end. The end for now. Actually, hold on. Just kidding. I want to end on this one. Okay, he does a flashback. Okay. November 14th. This is the day after the murder, so like the Monday. Ben Roberts has his mind on the end of term exams, so he barely notices that the spot where Bryan Kohberger usually sits in class in Wilson Short Hall is empty today. Ben's head is filled with projects and deadlines. Plus, he's just bumped into someone in the financial technology program who has news of 4 horrendous homicides over in Moscow. University students stabbed in their bedrooms in the middle of the night. That's completely horrible, Ben thinks. He tries to put it out of his mind, goes back to focusing on his classwork. So Ben, or somebody is actually not Ben, but somebody else was the source that Bryan didn't go to school on Monday. But later, members of the cohort and Ben will think hard about Bryan's absence that day and what it meant. They clocked it because they decided they needed to create a paper trail, a record of what Bryan said and did, just in case something unexpectedly happened. These people told James Patterson that they began documenting everything that Bryan Kohberger was doing. This is before the murders. You understand that? I said, "Excuse me?" And just nobody thought they would go to the police. But that is like, yeah, that's kind of like civil. Is that stalking? I don't fucking know. I'm just going to write down everything this guy does. But later, members of the cohort and Ben will think hard about it. They said that they clocked it because they decided they needed to create a paper trail, a record of what Bryan said and did, just in case something unexpectedly happened. If he were to lodge a complaint against one of the professors, for instance. We all felt he was creepy, Ben said, but harmless. But harmless. We all thought he was creepy, but harmless. Bryan is weird, but he's not evil. But the next day and the day after that, Ben starts to see a slight change in Bryan. He becomes a bit lighter, more animated. Ben ascribes it to the end of term coming and the filters coming off. Something about his appearance is a little looser. He's growing stubble. He's got a 5 o'clock shadow. Ben is checking him out. I don't care what anybody says. Ben also hears that, and of course, Ben's not going to come out and say that. Like, dude, I was coming on to a fucking killer. You know? Dude, he's getting loose now. He's got the stubble going. Ben also hears that Bryan's grading of the undergraduates' papers is changing dramatically because he was just talked to and said, "Bitch, if you give these bitches F's and D's and C's, you on your ass. No more TA for you. No more scholarship for you. You out." Like, and these are the people that are going to go on to like criminal justice world. And no wonder we can't solve homicides because this is what are you talking about? He was just had a talking to supposedly twice. Bag of D's says that Ben is catching the feelies over there. So Ben also hears that Bryan's grading of the undergraduates' papers is just changing dramatically. Everyone, women included, start getting high marks. Bryan stops writing essays on their papers. Some of the students are shocked, but also relieved. Ben hears the gossip, but he doesn't pay too much attention to this at the time. None of the cohorts do. Their focus is on exams and grades. They came here to get graduate degrees so they could find good jobs. Ben assumes that's what they all want. Bryan must too. But when Ben thinks about it, he realizes Bryan doesn't talk much about his plans for the future. Still, Ben assumes he has them, he just doesn't talk about it. You know, why wouldn't he have plans for the future? Now, November 17th, the day before he changes his license, you know, the plates or whatever. Some of the WSU kids have skipped town early for Thanksgiving. Why? Because there was just a mass fucking killing, you know. The murders over in Moscow have freaked everyone out. So the receptionist at the medical center is glad when one of them at least keeps his scheduled appointment. This kid's name is Bryan Kohberger. On the 17th, he comes in a North Face jacket, not a leather jacket, in a North Face jacket. He comes in a North Face jacket. Tall, thin, pale, eyes that bug out. You think that every single person that... He's a talker. Wait, he's a talker. He's a talker. I thought that he wasn't a talker. I thought that people were like, you know, his daddy talks for him. He's a talker. He's a talker. Goes out of his way to chat to all the staff. Charm them. He stands out. The receptionist doesn't usually remember anyone's name, but she'll remember Bryan's. Her boss doesn't usually comment on any of the patients, but even she says, he's so nice and charming. The receptionist agrees. Before he leaves, Bryan schedules an appointment for next spring. Yeah, doesn't sound like he's coming back. Schedules an appointment for next spring. What does he need to go? What kind of doctor is he going to see? What does he need? I'm just curious. What was his appointment for? I know that's probably two. See you then, she says. See you then, she tells him. She and her colleagues will look forward to that. So Bryan set up an appointment for next spring. November 18th. So what do you think about the murders in Moscow? Peggy at the State Department of Licensing in Pullman is making small talk with the tall, thin, WSU student at the front of the line who has come to exchange his Pennsylvania plates for 2 Washington plates. His name, according to the forms, is Bryan Kohberger. She and her 5 colleagues regularly make small talk with their customers. They pride themselves on running a government outfit that's got some character, bitches. They allow pet dogs to run around, man. They don't want their customers to have a run-of-the-mill experience just because it's a vehicle licensing joint. They want the experience to be memorable, fun even. Get out of here. Oh my God. This is wild. The hell out of here. They've got a reputation they are proud of, and yeah. So Peggy doesn't hesitate to get into the murders with the guy in order to pass the time. Horrific, isn't it? He replies. Horrific, isn't it? She later says that there was nothing out of the ordinary of their conversation. So I guess that whole talk about that he wouldn't talk about the murders. He's as happy to chat as she is. Frankly, it makes people feel better about what happened to blow off steam together. It's a productive coping mechanism. The guy says he's as shocked as they all are. Nervous, too, that the murderer is on the loose. He wants to know what she thinks. Who would have done that? Is the murderer among them? What about what the cops said? It's such a perfectly normal exchange that given the circumstances, Peggy doesn't think twice about it. Well, no shit, Peggy, because you struck the conversation up to say, oh my God, how about the murders? What's going on? But then after his arrest, when she sees his face on TV, it hits her. Get the fuck out of here. You know how many people you see a day? It hits her. The guy she had that perfectly normal chat with about the murders was changing his plates to try to get away with it. She can hardly believe it. To try to get away with it. I'm here to change my plates. He just got pulled over and they said, you need to go change your plates. You need to go change your plates. Like James Patterson can't write that in there, right? December 2nd at 1:45 p.m., Rose, a local hairstylist, sees that one of her regulars, Bryan, is coming in for his usual skin fade 35-minute hair appointment. No big deal, she thinks. Bryan has always been nice, polite. He started coming to her in July. Since then, he's popped in every few weeks and become one of her regulars. Every few weeks gets that fade on. He left her a voicemail yesterday asking if she could fit him in the next day. She was able to see him at Powers Barbershop, just off the main street in Pullman, where she works most days. So today he shows up and she clips using the scissors and the blade. They talk the way they usually do. She learns he'll be heading home to Pennsylvania for Christmas soon. So on December 2nd, he's going home. Okay. He's going home soon to Pennsylvania for Christmas. She learns of this. But he plans to be back in January. It's a routine visit on a routine day. But in 4 weeks, Rose won't think anything about it or him was routine. When she sees his mugshot on TV, she falls on the floor. It's crazy to find out I interacted with this person, she later said. I touched this person's hair. I made this person look and feel good about themselves. Like everyone whom Bryan ran into over the next few weeks, she wondered if she missed any signs. But Bryan is a good actor. He's confident. And the Pullman police have no idea that the suspect is in their midst, or what he looks like, or, in fact, anything, because for once, in an unprecedented fashion, Moscow hasn't been looping them in or sharing any details, and that makes them unhappy. There it is. Who's pissy about it? Why wouldn't they share? Uncharacteristically, we're not going to share anything with WSU. Yet, WSU finds Bryan Kohberger's car on the same, yet, let's see. That's right. 11/28, 11/29. Glenn Johnson, the Pullman mayor at the time, later reflected, everyone was so frustrated. Where's the information? They kept asking. The Pullman cops have an unwritten rule never to have less than half a tank of gas in their cars in case Moscow needs them to pursue someone who committed a crime there. But now the Pullman cops are sitting in their cars idle. They have nothing to go on. What are they fucking talking about? They got the be on the lookout. When WSU Police Chief Gary Jenkins considered how Bryan resumed his normal activities in Pullman in the days and weeks following the murders, he believed his actions denoted a growing confidence. I would think with every day that went by, in quotes, he says. So during the gag order, the guy that, knew that Bryan Kohberger's phone was already had by the police on December 20th, per his interview with Anjanette Levy, who I cannot believe people are not exploding over that. I just cannot believe it. I would think with every day that went by that he wasn't caught, that his chances were getting better and better that he wouldn't be, Jenkins said. But cockiness, it turns out, can be misplaced. It's one of the latest classes of the semester, Criminal Justice Processing and Institutions, a course taught by Dr. Greg hymens. God, we now got the hymen. You guys, Dr. Hyman. The topic of this recent murders in Moscow is brought up for a class discussion here in December. For instance, what is legally on the table for the murderer when they've caught him? Idaho has the death penalty. Washington State does not. The murderer surely would have known this. Ordinarily, Bryan would be front and center speaking more than most of the students. But one of Bryan's classmates, someone who has 4 classes with him that semester and is used to listening to his monologues, notices that he doesn't speak at all. Not once in 3 hours. He's got nothing to say on a topic that has the class revved up. This is extraordinary, the classmate thinks. The classmate assumes Kohberger is ill or tired or something. Ben Roberts, another classmate, remembers dimly that Bryan said he was extra short on sleep in December. But it doesn't occur to anyone that their homophobic classmate is anything other than deeply weird. Ben wonders if Bryan is feeling the pressure of being the only one in their little groupie from the East Coast. Why is this coming up, this East Coast, West Coast shit? Are you kidding me? Who cares? Who would ever feel that way? Oh my God. Oh my God, I'm the only one from the East Coast. I think I'm fucking just totally catching up to me. Bryan knew when he left the East Coast that he was going to the West Coast. Ben wonders if Bryan is feeling the pressure of being the only one in the cohort from the East Coast. How could that be pressure? If he's found it hard to adapt to the Pacific Northwest culture. Fuck me. What the shit? He is running into an entirely new group of people who are now his peers, he said. He doesn't have any seniority over anybody. He doesn't have any authority. What? He is trying to adapt to a new social structure on the opposite side of the country, and the West Coast does things somewhat differently from the East Coast. I cannot believe this. Weeks later, Steve Gonsalves, his blood boiling at the thought of this Pennsylvania kid who came out here on purpose to kill us, said something similar. I know my history. The East Coast feels like they're the superior coast, Steve says. But he's determined not to let this atrocity undermine the very reason he moved his family here, his desire to provide a safe home for his family. So his goal is to make absolutely sure prosecutors get a conviction so the world can see that Idaho is still the sanctuary he believes in. We have farm towns and trusting people. Dude, we have farms in Ohio. Just so we know, everybody knows. We also have Ohio State, one of the biggest powerhouses in the nation. CBUS right here represent. We also have Cincinnati. Okay. You guys want to laugh a little bit? December 9th. This is where I'll end because this is good. Bryan is blowing up again at Professor Snyder. What? Bryan's blowing up again at Professor Snyder on December 9th? You guys, December 9th is the day before Othram is told to stop working on, Bryan is blowing up again at Professor Snyder. Only 2 days ago, which would have been December 7th, it had seemed as though Bryan might have eked out a Hail Mary. He and Snyder, along with the graduate director, Clitus, and Dr. Melanie Angela, so the cohort hears, had met in Wilson Short Hall to discuss Bryan's progress following the improvement plan that had been emailed to him on November 3rd. The plan that told him to be more respectful to women, his professors, his peers, and his students. And I thought that Bryan was doing, everyone's like, woo, Well, not perfect. We agreed that there was progress. Dr. Melanie Angela wrote to Bryan. Wrote to him. I thought that they had a meeting. Why would you be writing this? See, this is so contradictory. This cohort, one of his 11 people in that fucking whatever TA shit ass, whatever, one of those is the cohorts, and they're the source of this. And they're saying, so, do we think this is BK Norton? You guys think? Because I do. While not perfect, we agreed that there was progress, end quote. It's in quotes. It's in motherfucking quotes. They're saying that this was wrote to Bryan. Yet the committee still decided it had to terminate him. Because now, just 2 days after that promising meeting, Bryan is losing it for the second time this semester with Snyder in the professor's office. What? When Ben and Bryan's cohort hear about this, they are mystified about how anyone could rub the easygoing professor the wrong way. To use very coarse language for a second time, Ben said, if you fuck up badly enough that you wind up on a PIP, a performance improvement plan, as a graduate student, you have done something terribly, dreadfully, miserably wrong. But Bryan cannot control himself in front of Snyder, apparently. The rest of the class has seen what happens to Bryan when he's angry. What? When did the class see Bryan angry? When was he angry? He goes bright red and clenches his fists so hard the knuckles turn white. Chief Jenkins heard that one of the thorny issues under discussion is the allegation by a woman student that Bryan followed her to her car. Who is this hoe? I'm just saying, fuck, did you go to the police? Because you better have gone to the police. Women, if you're being followed by people, you go to the police and you report this shit. Bryan is just pissed. But the discussion spins out of control, way beyond. You guys, can you imagine this? This does not make any sense. So let me think about this. I'm going to go tell my professor that I think that Bryan followed me out to my car. What? What do you mean? Yeah, I think he followed me out to my car. Well, you need to go make a police report. What did Snyder say? Oh, it's okay, honey. How are you, baby doll? Did these girls just, I did Snyder tell them to go file a police report? Because how does Chief Jenkins hear? You guys, I have all these emails. None of this makes sense. But the discussion spins out of control way beyond, it was not civil, into something angry. 2 days later, on December 11th, Dr. Melanie Angela wrote to Bryan requesting a meeting at which he must have known she would fire him and he would lose his funding. She later wrote in her termination letter of December 19th that she'd requested the meeting because during his altercation with Professor Snyder, it became apparent that you had not made progress regarding professionalism, end quote. Yeah, you can write whatever the fuck you want at that point, December 19th, right? But where is any of this evidence of Bryan will receive this letter when he's back home in Pennsylvania. So the rest of the cohort is in the dark as to what happened. What? That doesn't even make any sense either. Because then they're basically saying that Bryan was always the source of whatever happened. And I'm like, the FBI tip is the same day that the December 19th firing letter comes out. You really want us to believe all this shit, right? As far as they know, he'll come back in January, but they aren't giving much thought to him and his difficulties. Top of mind for them is the troubling fact that they have been these horrific murders in Moscow, and the police seem to have no clue who did it. And you guys aren't thinking to yourself, maybe it was Bryan? Let's turn his crazy weird ass in. I find it so hard to believe that none of these people who supposedly thought that this guy was just so off his rocker and fucking hated women, and saw that all these women were killed in the fucking house, and Bryan didn't come to school the next day, allegedly, supposedly, and that Bryan just totally changed after it, or but didn't want to talk about the murder. I mean, just, and a tip is free. And wait a second, Ben, this is Ben Gay, ready? Ben rode in a white Elantra with Bryan. And so when they said, hey, we're looking for a white Elantra, and you got Bryan, and you're like, oh my God, the white Elantra, my fucking Ben Gay over here who rode in the car, he doesn't think to call in the tip that Ben Roberts, you didn't call, what? Also, he drives his on campus, and all these other professors and all, oh, this girl, he was following me, and just nobody of these 20 faculty members that are all in the criminal justice world. He had a white Elantra. I don't care if it was in the 2000s. You would, you know what? I'm going to turn this in anyways. I don't know. I was just like, what the hell? And then the best part about it is none of this is all coming from, they said, this altercation with Snyder, and it was a here, hey, I just, we're going to leave it like that. I've had a great, I told you guys we were going to go for a while tonight. Yeah. And a while for me is usually right around 3 hours. What do you guys think? Was that a good, nice little read through? What do you guys think? I think it's crazy. I think that for Ben and Bryan to stand up and talk to each other for 2 hours and 30 minutes is absolutely ridiculous around dinner time. I don't think that, I mean, who wouldn't be hungry? I think somebody was giving somebody a blowjob. I think that Ben realized that he fell in love with the killer. Thanks for tormenting yourself, Manna. Who was just sitting at a typewriter just typing this up? And then Jenkins was just singing like a canary over there to Vicky and James. And then Jenkins, you just blew a load. Thank you so much, because you told us that on December 20th, they had Bryan's phone records and they already had everything like mapped out, blah, blah, blah. And if everybody wants to ignore it, that's perfectly fine. Two things can be right, guys. Our rights could have been violated and Bryan could be guilty. Two things can happen. Just wow. Gary Jenkins coming through. Big plow dick. He's like, I don't give a fuck. He's like, thank God I didn't hire him, but WSU did. How about that? We've never seen Bryan like get upset, get violent or whatever. And the only people that can say that is this, I don't know. I think it's weird. It's like the school, which now they're coming out with it and saying it way later. December 19th, when, the same day that Jenkins, right, found out because of Brett Payne. And so you don't think that Jenkins was like, oh my God, and he was told not to tell anybody. Do not tell anybody. And probably said, dude, he's like in our TAs. Like, I have to tell them. Like, what do you mean? Like, I won't tell. Like, what do you, like, you don't think that that's so coincidental? that on December 19th, that letter was wrote up. Come on. I think it's weird. I don't believe in coincidences. Blue, thank you so much. Lana, thank you, Miss Potts. Janine from the Seattle area, $4.99. I thought BK offered to take a job with the Tri-Cities. This would be 230 miles from Pullman. What? No. No, that's not where he was talking about. He was talking about, no. I'm stuck on Here's My Family. Right. Keyboard crime fighter. I'm stuck on Here's My Family. Who would ever do that and think that that's something cool? To be cool. Atlanta, I need your voice over all of my audios. Oh God. That's a train wreck. There'll be a lot of beep beep. The Watcher. I wasn't going to read this book, but I'll pay you for proving how messed up this whole thing is. Yeah, Lana Brains, thank you so much. I think it is kind of messed up. Like, and when James Patterson came out and told the world that, hey, this is everything that was going to come out in the trial, this is, and I don't think he's wrong when he says that. Like, this was going to be the state's narrative. This is how the state was going to portray the case. I believe that. I totally believe that. Now, do I think that it's admissible? Fuck. Jesus. You need those actual people. This can't be hearsay upon hearsay upon hearsay. And just there's nothing backing it up with like no documentation of, nobody making a report. You're just going to be up there testifying like how the book kind of says, oh, I was going to type up this and I just press backspace, I got into his white Honda Elantra. I thought he was weird and all these crazy things, but I just didn't call in the tip. Yeah, because it wasn't between the 2011 and 2013 year. Well, you don't think that maybe it could... the other thing that I would have to say is, how do you know if Bryan's car was a 2000? How do you know that it wasn't in the range of 2011 to 2013? So for me with that, for a police officer, I can understand, but you're not going to know what year Bryan's car is if you're Joe Blow. You're not going to be like, you know what? I'm not going to call them because I think that car is not. I see a white Lexus. Okay, great. Oh, man. They're looking for one of those. Oh, God. The person that drives it's a fucking weirdo. Oh, my God. Holy shit. And then you go to, oh, my God, we need to call this in. Think about it, man. You wouldn't be like, oh, my God, it's not a year. You wouldn't know the year. You wouldn't know the year unless you were a crazy psycho. I ain't a killer, but don't push me. Revenge is like the sweetest joy next to getting. That's right. Lottie Dottie, we likes to potty. Super sticker. Bing, bing, bing. William Tardy. 23 months, man. I love it. And, keyboard. 23 months. Look at that. We nearly got a 3-pack of babies. That's right. Wild. Joanne, you like that late night? Octavia, all you late night goers. Yeah, so I think two things could be true. I know two things can be true. Our rights, aka Bryan's rights, violated, but also guilty. Now, if you guys want to see some crazy shit, like proof of crazy shit, I've been going through, I'm almost done with the complete transcripts from the trial of the Delphi case. Obviously, you guys know that I was there, but I missed the first week. And then a couple days here and there sprinkled. And, but boy, did the defense make some serious... I got so many questions. So after next week, I'm doing a series with Bella. So we're going to put every person that testified and have a little blurb. It's back and forth dialect of the parts of the trial that make it the trial, basically. And so it's like going to be like 9-minute clips. And I think it's going to be wild. I think you guys are going to be like, holy shit. So it's really sad. Richard Allen's innocent. There was no evidence. There was no evidence against that man. And I challenge Othram to get all the DNA that Indiana State Police Laboratory will not separate. They don't do that with mixtures. They don't do touch DNA. They have hair. I mean, if Othram wants to do a good deed, do a freebie and see all that DNA that was all at that crime scene, all this mixture of bloods that do not link to Richard Allen in any type of way. That's at the crime scene. Nothing is Richard Allen's. Other people's are there though. And tell me whose those are. So Brian Enton reported that Olivia is addressing BK directly. Well, why wouldn't you? She should. Olivia should chew his ass out. Olivia should say, listen, just tell us where the murder weapon is. If you did this, tell us where the murder weapon is. If you did this alone, tell us you did this alone and where the murder weapon is. And then you can go make as many books as you want, motherfucker. Because the prosecution, they're not going to tell us anything. Bait his ass. So. All right, guys, on your way out, use your thumb and press the down or the up thumb. Do not ride on a fence, man. You have an opinion. Make yourself known. We'll see you back here tomorrow at some point. I think I'm going to do a morning show. Good night. Sleep well. Thanks again, moderators. Much love. We appreciate you. Thank you, Kate. You're such a lovely, lovely human. I always love your comments too. You got a good brain. I love people with good brains. Keep being kind to one another out there. Best part about a lot of people is we want a lot of opinions. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. Thanks again.